Coming up on today's show, we will break down Dane Brugler's way too early 2025 NFL mock draft. Of note, 16 players in his last year's mock draft did go in round one, couple in round two, couple in round three. Some of them did go back to school, though, however. Now, if you want me to do a way too early 2025 NFL mock draft, then share this video. Prove to the bosses this is something we should be doing. Help me out. Share today's video on social media. All right, I'll make note off the top here. Dane's order is based on reverse Super Bowl odds, so no complaining, in theory. First up, Mykel Williams, the defensive lineman out of Georgia. The production, doesn't necessarily pop off the screen, but with only 4.5 sacks and 11 tackles, we said similar stuff like, hey, watch out for some of these other Georgia players in a year to come, and that ended up happening pretty accurately. I was a little surprised he was number one, but the hype around him from the NFL is real. Number two, a quarterback. It's Carson Beck out of Georgia, which I get the argument here. Hey, if they're picking 2 overall, maybe things did not go very well for Will Levis, new regime, etc. The quarterback class is not good. I'm not going to lie to you guys. There's a real chance that maybe none of them go in the top 5, and you kind of get too close to the Kenny Pickett draft, which was a disaster. Hopefully somebody that does emerge. Beck has shown flashes, and if he continues to show the upward arc he has, that's a good thing for Georgia and for a team that needs a quarterback. But there's also no guarantee he goes in round 1. Like, everyone knew Kelvin was going to go in round 1 this past year. That was a guarantee. Beck, not the same. Number 3, Mason Graham, the defensive tackle out of Michigan. He fires off that ball. You're watching all the other Michigan guys, and you go, who's this 55 out there? Mason Graham is definitely a name to monitor. Denver at number 4, Will Campbell was a starter as a true freshman for LSU. Played really well this past season. He is one of 2, I think, guys that are generally viewed as like, these are really good left tackle prospects. We'll get to the other guy here in a moment. Number 5 for the Raiders is Will Johnson. I forgot to mention, Patriots add another impactful defensive tackle. That makes sense. Denver gets a left tackle to replace Garrett Bowles. The Raiders get their number 1 cornerback in Will Johnson out of Michigan. I love his game. There's so much to like about what he does on the football field. Highly excited to watch him play. 4 interceptions this past year, knowing that teams didn't really want to throw at him all that much. Now, you have the right to change your mind basically every day between now and the NFL draft, or at least the CFB season wrapping up. Who do you think is the best player in the 2025 NFL draft? Head down there, go to the pinned comment, and reply. Kelvin Banks Jr. out of Texas goes to the Giants, so probably going to flip over to the right side and pair him with Andrew Thomas. He was also a true freshman starter at Texas. Took a big step forward last year in his sophomore campaign. He and Will Campbell back and forth. Who's offensive tackle 1? Both very talented prospects. Arizona gets a much-needed pass rusher, I would argue. This is the more realistic, which I hate saying it because I don't like doing these comps to higher-end players. This is the Micah Parsons comp that makes more sense even than Harold Perkins at LSU. This was a Penn State defensive player who was a linebacker and is now going to play more pass rusher for the Nittany Lions. Very curious how he fares, and he's actually kind of built like Micah too, by the way. Curious how he fares this upcoming season. Another cornerback going to Minnesota, giving them an impact piece. I think they still need more cornerback help. Benjamin Morrison out of Notre Dame. Love the size, love the athletic ability. I think the ball skills in terms of making plays on the football, always room to get better, of course, unless you're like, even Trayvon Diggs had so many interceptions in the NFL, didn't have the same many as college. Still had 3, Morrison did this past year for Notre Dame. One of the most fun players in college football, that is Travis Hunter, the wide receiver / cornerback going to Colorado. I would play him both ways to start. Depending on who you ask around the NFL, some people say, I think he's better as a wide receiver because he's so good with the ball in his hands. Others will say, I say corner because he's a bit more polished there. I kind of want to try him at both. Screw it. Saints, to an extent, could actually maybe use help of both come next offseason. Big fan of James Pearce's game. He's a little skinny. I thought he has shown some really good flashes, upside, athletic ability, impact, etc. Bucks get a pass rusher there. I'm focusing more on the players and the teams, so it's the 2025 mock after all. I could see Pearce challenging for even top 5 or above in this upcoming draft. Today's show is made possible by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is daily fantasy made easy. You pick more than, pick less than, and come out on top if you, of course, made the correct decisions. Prize Picks often has fun little goodies and bonuses and boosts, etc. The Demons and Goblins, for example. The Demons they're harder to hit, but if you do, you get a bigger payout. Goblins are easier to hit. The point projections are lower, whatever. And not quite the same high payout, but maybe you do a better job of hitting them all. If you're doing the Demons and or you're not doing Goblins, because I don't like doing it with Goblins, but you're just doing normal Prize Picks, I love the flex play. That way, if I get one wrong, I still end up on top, and they still give you a higher payout if you get all 3. It's just not quite the same higher payout. Here's my NFL season-long Prize Picks play. Patrick Mahomes, more than passing yards, 43.5 or 4,350.5. More than Dak Prescott passing yards, more than CeeDee Lamb touchdowns, and more than Micah Parsons sacks. All 4 of those numbers are lower than what they had last year. It's basically a pick of, are they going to stay healthy? I vote yes. Go to prizepicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. Links in the comments and the description of today's show. It's another first-round pick for the Washington Commanders here, but this is a different body type than what they have. Tetoro McMillan out of Arizona is 6'5". At least that's his listed size there, by the way. Still has some room to grow, but I would not sleep on that Arizona offense. They've got some pretty good playmakers that you maybe didn't see if you weren't watching Pac-12 After Dark. RIP. Malachi Starks was probably the best defensive back for Georgia last year. And Lassiter, Bullard, and Smith all went like top 75 or something. So that should tell you how good he is. Lots of ability back there at safety for the Colts too. I'm not sure they need a safety, but again, it's more about the players here. Harold Perkins Jr. is a very tough eval for me. He is not big enough at the moment to hang on the edge full time. He's listed at 6'1", 220, and I'm really not sure if that's even true in terms of his size. He has showcased playmaking as a pass rusher. I need to see more of him as an off-ball linebacker in coverage because I just think that inside linebacker is a better fit for him. My concern is that this might end up being less of like a hybrid player and more of a tweener, but he is like the guy I am most excited to watch this upcoming year. I want to see how he takes a step forward in year 3 because the flashes are there. Number 14, and I don't agree with this one. Quinn Ewers, who Dane says will be a quote-unquote polarizing prospect, which is true. He made the right call going back to school. He is still young. He has experience. He has the arm talent. It is the consistency, the accuracy, especially deep ball throwing, and the mechanical footwork I despise, that has to be adjusted. They had 2 of the fastest receivers in football, A.D. Mitchell and Xavier Worthy, and especially outside of the Bama game, they completed 13 passes, 20-plus yards all season. The deep ball was just not good for Quinn Ewers. That has to get better or he's not going to work in the NFL. So will Quinn Ewers be a first-round pick? I'm sure we'll get plenty of Arch Manning comments in there. Y for yes, N for no in the comments. Denzel Burke, we had put him in some back end of round 1 mock drafts, but he decides to go back to Ohio State. Jags had been linked in all of the first-round mock drafts for a corner. They took Brian Thomas. We're still going to mock them a corner in round 1, or at least the Athletic is. Ernest Green III. Oh, look, another Georgia offensive tackle. Yeah, go figure. He was awesome at left tackle and was a big reason why Amarius Mims didn't move to the left side. Left tackle was an area of concern for Cleveland next offseason. One of my favorite players is Luther Burden, the wide receiver from Missouri. I know he's not the biggest guy, but he's a playmaker. He had 14 yards per catch. He can make a bunch of big plays. He consistently gets some good yards, at the catch point, more than after the catch as well. Love his game. Fun fit in LA too. I believe it's pronounced Dion, by the way, but Dion Walker, his nickname is D1, so I would assume that's just like the nickname and how it's actually pronounced. Get used to this name. 6'6", 350, and they put him at like edge sometimes. The obvious comp here is Jordan Davis. I can't wait to watch him this year. He's going to be so much fun. And this one is going to be popular too. Colston Loveland, the Michigan tight end, goes to Jim Harbaugh at Michigan. He would have been tight end 2 by a massive margin had he been eligible this year. I don't know what the production will look like given the current quarterback uncertainty for Michigan. He can block and catch, though. He is the complete tight end package as far as I'm concerned. Nick Scorton, the former Purdue transfer, now at Texas A&M. He's got pretty good movement skills for a big guy. I can't wait to see how he does in the SEC. This past year at Purdue, he had 10 sacks. This was one of the better players who transferred in college football. Dolphins get their Christian Wilkins replacement, Shamar Turner. A couple good A&M players. Funny how that works out. Again, I'll make note with a lot of these guys in the other round 1 mock drafts, you're hoping for growth and being better. Shamar Turner is certainly one of those guys who's got to take the disruption into production. Here's Shedeur Sanders. The Colorado quarterback goes to the New York Jets. I know he's the betting favorite to go number 1 overall right now. That's just because he's the most well-known guy. He would not have been a locked first-rounder this year. He's not a locked first-rounder in this year's class right now either. There is talent, though. I think consistency and handling pressure are things he has to do better, and this will be a must-watch player and team as far as I'm concerned in college football. So who ends up drafting Shedeur Sanders? I will make note the report of there were 4 teams. It's not true. Absolutely not true. And Dion might try to keep his kid out of the cold weather. It's not always how it works, my friend. But who will draft Shedeur? Sound off in the comments. Walter Nolan, remember I mentioned the upside stuff? That's this pick right here. Former 5-star recruit, one of the top-rated recruits as well, transferring to Ole Miss, has only flashed at A&M. Need more than just flashes. Isaiah Bond, the wide receiver out of Texas, the Alabama transfer, now gets to go beat the maybe number 1 guy for the Longhorns. The speed and some of those that high-pointing ability is very intriguing for a Dallas team that has CeeDee Lamb and not much else under contract next season. Both LSU offensive tackles in this mock draft. Kind of surprised by that one. Maybe there's the Eagles' long-term Lane Johnson replacement in Emory Jones. Danny Dennis Sutton out of Penn State. So 2 actually Penn State pass rushers after the other 2 guys got drafted last year. Listed at a big size, 6'5", 270. I think that fits what Houston could be looking for as kind of that more base end opposite some more twitched up guys. We are, I should say, your stop for NFL draft coverage. I know the 2024 draft is over. The 2025 draft videos will be right here on our NFL Draft YouTube channel. Hit that sub button right now. JT Tuimaloau, I'm glad he went back because I want to see more consistency. The flashes are there from the former 5-star recruits. And given that Trey Hendrickson might not be around for the long term, Sam Hubbard might not be either, I do think that's a good fit there in Cincinnati. Patrick Payton, the Florida State pass rusher to the Buffalo Bills, 12 TFLs, by the way, 7 sacks as well. I think there's room to add some frame for him. He was second in pressures behind Jared Verse, and the Bills have shown interest in that type of body type as well. The Lions get a wide receiver, originally from Michigan, by the way, Deion Burks, who I was at Purdue, had only 629 yards. The production wasn't great. Now transferring to Oklahoma. I feel like these projections are even harder now because there's a lot of transfers on this list. So we're hoping / assuming they end up having big steps forward. Landon Jackson, who absolutely torched Alabama and got round 1 hype from Mel Kiper, wisely went back because as good as he was in that game, and it was an absolutely bonkers performance, 3.5 sacks, 3 TFLs, he had 3 sacks the rest of the season. So the great size listed at 6'7", 281. The rest of the games have to look more like that. The Niners get an offensive tackle, Josh Connerly, out of Oregon. He did get better as the year went on. It was a bit of a rough patch to begin the season, but the Oregon offense was very quick passing game, so hit him a little bit early on, and then he played better down the stretch. Niners need a new right tackle long term, and a left tackle at some point, too, to replace Trent Williams. Another guard, that's Tyler Booker, the Alabama guard who Dane calls the most talented prospect from the Nick Saban era to stay in Tuscaloosa for 2024. Big boy in the middle. That could be the potential Joe Thuney replacement down the line for the Chiefs. Who did Dane leave off his mock draft? There are plenty of names he left off because it changes drastically between now and even the week 1 and then week 12, et cetera, of college football. Drop a player name for me in the comments section. Some names to consider. I was a little surprised no running backs made the list. Quinshawn Junkins at OSU and Ollie Gordon, among the 2 better ones there. Emeka Egbuka out of Ohio State, who we had hyped last year as a first-round pick. Trey Harris from Ole Miss could have a big step forward. Jonah Savnaya, yeah, that's how you pronounce it. It's a trick one. I got the pronunciation here in front of me. I still can't read it off properly. He's a good tackle, though, at Arizona. Jack Sawyer had some top 50 buzz this year. I like Princely Umanmielen out of the Florida to Ole Miss transfer. Don't sleep on him. Dante Corleone, a.k.a. the Godfather, could have been a top 50, 60 pick had he turned pro. Takario Davis, again, I think Arizona's being slept on. He played well. And also Kevin Winston, the safety from Penn State. There's some good players this year. I think it's squeezed into round 1 if they go pro.